Alrighty, next up for the evening is a new fly, a 2021 release. So it's just going to be coming out now as you're watching this video. This is a fly called the Sparring Partner. This is the one in the vise is a size 2. This fly is going to come in 3 sizes, a 2, a 4, and a 6. And they're going to drop down in right about a 1/2 inch increment. So the 2 comes in right at about 3 inches. The 4 is right about 2.5. And there's a little tiny size 6 that comes in right at about 2 inches. A little tiny guy. And this fly is going to come in 3 different colors. The one we're going to tie today is the white and gold. I got him right here in front of me. I'll just throw him in the vise. The next one is a black and purple. Very, very good color combo. This black and purple with the black mallard, a little bit of flash in the body, a lot out the tail. Very, very good one. And then the third color is just what I call brown trout. It's just kind of a natural bait fishy color. A lot of a natural rabbit. Gold and yellow flash with a gold or a yellow mallard flank. Very, very reminiscent of a little baby brown trout. A very, very good color. And those are the 3 colors. We'll get started. We'll put a hook in a vise and a cone on it. So we're going to do a size 2. And this is a Daiichi 2461. Black finish, big hook gap, straight eye, really, really good streamer hook. I like this hook for cones. The cone sits super clean with that straight eye. It just sticks straight out. And then like I say, just a brass cone. No need to go tungsten on this unless you wanted to. Brass cone. Again, we're going to do this white and gold one. So I've got a gold cone on there. And we're going to throw some 3/0 lead on here. We're going to do about 20 wraps or so. 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Cut that off. We've got 17, 18, 19 and a half. Push that real tight, push it up into the cone just to make sure everything is clean. And then I push this back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lock all of this head forward. I don't want that cone to spin. I don't want the cone to fall. Like that, if the lead moves, the cone is going to fall. It's going to be hard to finish the fly. I want to lock everything like that. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some Zap-A-Gap, a little brush in the cap. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this lead back, push the cone forward. Right in here, obviously, I'm going to put a drop of super glue. You don't want to take your time when you do this. When you drop that super glue on there, push this forward quickly. If you take too long, that super glue can bind to the hook shank right here, and as soon as that lead touches it, the lead can't go any farther. There's already a little bit of super glue, and it creates a little bit of a dam, so you need to push it when it's nice and wet. So don't take your time to push that on. So again, drop, push. Just hold that there for a sec, and that super glue is going to get pushed up into the junction right behind the eye. It's going to touch the cone, it's going to touch the lead. It's going to lock everything in place. At this point, we can throw our thread on. For this particular fly, I'm using 140 in white. Get this all set up. This fly is a mashup of 3, maybe even 4 different streamers I had been working on at one point, and none of them were coming out the way I wanted, and I wasn't happy with any of them, and I just took the best attributes of all of those flies that I had been working on, combined them all into one fairly simple, cone-headed, single-hooked, flashy fly that has been very, very productive for me. What we're going to do is we're going to work on our tail flash. So a little bit unique, we're going to use 2 colors and we're going to blend them together for the tail. So this is on this white and gold. We're going to use gold, either ice wing fiber, wing and flash, whatever you want to call it, really, really shredded up Mylar. And then the other one is Ripple Ice from Hairline, and this is the UV Pearl. So we're going to get a nice UV Pearl mixed with the gold. Just clean off a little bit of room on your table. And what I like to do with this stuff is I generally try not to even take it out of the bag. It's very, very unruly stuff. It's so fine. What I do is I just pull the end out, grab it, and I just basically rock it back and forth and pull a bunch of this out of here. And we want to go really, really heavy on the flash for this fly. So that was a good amount. I'm going to do just a little bit more. and add to it. Just throw it on your table next to you. Just leave it long. Don't worry about trimming it. Just put that back in the bag and you're good to go. The next material, the ripple ice, we're going to kind of do the same thing. This is much shorter. It's like a waffle type material. Very, very nice, flashy stuff. If you haven't played with this for streamers, really, really good material. We're going to take, again, one little clump, take another little clump again. This is a size 2. This is the big one. I'm going to stack a bunch of flash on the belly of this fly. It's a really, really flashy fly out the back. We got this. Before we throw our flash on, that glue at this point is set. We'll just come in and just cover this lead. And again, you just want to make sure, the most important thing about tying flies with cones on them, if you want to do a nice clean finish to the fly, like some, when it look, to get it to truly finish like that, where it's nice and clean, the cone has to be straight up and down. If it falls, there's no way to really finish the fly cleanly. So I do take a little bit of time with the super glue and the lead, pushing it in there, letting it set so that that cone is locked up and down. So when I get to finish the fly, it's already set up, ready to go. It's not going to fall or move on me. And at this point, that's about all we need to do there. Cover the lead, get ready. We're going to take all of this flash and just pick it up off of the table. And it's going to be super, super unruly. And I kind of just roll it in my fingers. Get the gold mixed with the pearl and just roll them around in my fingers. And once I get them mixed up a little bit, right? Don't have to go too crazy at this point. I'm just going to basically roughly fold it in half. I'm going to come in. This is a bunch of flash. I'm going to half it. I'm going to take the front, fold it back, and I'm just going to jump up onto it real quick. I'm not going to wrap it all the way down yet. I'm going to take a comb, and I'm going to come in here, and I'm just going to aggressively rake this out. You can see it. It's going to pull out anything that's twisted, overlapping, short, and it's going to, at the same time, it's going to mix this all together. And just, you can't really overdo this. You really want to just air this out, right? By brushing this, it's releasing all the fibers from each other, making them really, really swimmy in the water. You can see it just by brushing it. It's much better than it was when I first tied it on. A dozen times or so, you're good to go. And then at this point, we're just going to run the thread down, right to the bend, lock this. And you can even just do it a couple more times just to be on the safe side. But you can see that UV pearl with the gold, very, very good color combo together. Just very, very flashy, very good looking. And that's where we're at right now. Since these materials are so different, you can see the wing and flash is way out here. The ripple ice is only about that long. I don't try to pull a taper. Normally on other materials, I would pull a taper into it when I tied it in. Since these are just so different, just to make it easy. I know this fly is going to be about 3 inches, and I know 3 inches on this vise is right here. So all I'm going to do is come in, I'm going to cut that square, and then I'm just going to cut a quick little taper. And you don't even have to do this, but just to thin it out at the end. And again, just because those materials are so different, it's hard to pull a taper into both of them at the same time, and just roll it back and forth. But that's it. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just tapering it a bit, and that's all. Next material we're going to do is we're going to tie in our main tail material, and it's just regular rabbit zonkers. Not Magnum. I like to do standard even on this big one. I don't use Magnum just because I want this tail to be thin. I want it to swim. And at the same time, it's going to cut a little bit of the weight out of the fly by going to just a standard rabbit zonker. Nothing special at all. All I'm going to do is come underneath and cut a little point in the hide. On the bottom side, up, flip it over, come underneath so you don't cut much of the fur. Probably just straight blocking the camera, but I'll show you what that looks like. I can get this little piece off. I'll wet it. You can see just cut little tiny triangle, not into the fur, come underneath and just cut the hide. That's it. Then for this, we're not going to run this. There's not going to be a wing on the back of this fly. This is just going to be the tail. So I just come to about where the lead stops, and I just basically throw this on here, measure it right to that 3-inch mark. Just hold it there, come over the top, lock her down. 4 or 5 is all you need. Come in. We're going to get rid of that, save that for the next fly, and then just kind of lift this up, big loose wraps, just to keep it up on top. Now it's going to be our tail. Right, sitting right on top of the flash. All that flash underneath is going to support it, give a nice flashy belly, nice back end silhouette, and then that rabbit just sitting on top is going to be just super, super swimmy when it comes through the water. Then the next material we're going to use is, for the 4th and final time, semi-sealed dubbing. We're going to cover the shank with this. It's going to give us just a nice flashy interior to the fly. You can use other dubbings. There are plenty out there that would work just fine because it's just really to fill the shank. Like I said, give the fly a nice interior glow. This particular one for the white and gold is Starlight. It's number 36. There's also semi-seal in crystal is also very good for this one. But you can see this dubbing has a lot of nice shine to it. There's several different colors, very, very, a hint of it, not a bunch, but it just sparkles. And again, more than you need for the fly you're tying, pull it and stack it. And for whatever reason, this particular color is a little bit shorter than the rest. Most of the semi-seals are really long fibered. This one is a little bit short. At least I've noticed, or at least the bags that I've had. And particularly this bag. The fibers are a little bit shorter than all other colors, but put that down. Again, dubbing loop, if you haven't seen it yet, very, very simple. Pull the thread right at your chest. This fly, again, we're going to cover this whole shank up to about a cone's length. I'll get to that in a sec, but give yourself enough. 8, 9 inches. Pull the thread back over the top. Grab it, throw it over, wrap back, all the way back to the tie-off point of the zonker. Bring your thread forward. You've got your running thread and your bobbin here. Just give this a quick untwist, and you've got a loop right here. This is where we're going to put our dubbing. So now we're going to palmer this dubbing in this loop up. So we're going to have multiple things tied off behind this cone. We're going to have the dubbing loop, obviously. Then we're going to put a big mallard flank feather in here and a couple rubber legs. And then in front of all of that, we're going to spin another collar of just rabbit fur, super, super tight to the cone. So that's what, 4 or 5 things tied in behind this cone. So the dubbing, the mallard, and the rubber legs all have to still be back to about there to give us enough room to do this, to do the rabbit collar behind the cone. If you lose track of where you're at and you tie these next handful of materials off tight to this cone, it's going to be pretty much impossible to get the collar on there. And to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, I'll just throw a finished one up. See how much rabbit we're going to stack in there? To do that, you have to give yourself enough room. So with that said, we'll build our loop for the body. And again, very, very sparse. No, it doesn't matter really how big of a fly you're tying for most things. When you're putting dubbing in a dubbing loop, you want it sparse. More is generally not better. You can make the loop longer if need be, but you can't really take any shortcuts by putting more dubbing into the loop. It generally does not turn out very well. It does not twist. It does not rake out very well. So again, very, very sparse. We're going to spin this. Once it's spun nice and tight, grab your nice brass bristle brush. You want something really, really coarse. And you're going to rake this out. So you have something like that, you're good to go. Now we're just going to palmer this forward. And always at this point thinking about your tie-off point. You can always backtrack over this loop a little bit, but you really need to be conscious of where you're at. So I'm going to stop there, well short of the cone. Couple wraps, pull up, pull down, fold that back, jump onto the tie-off point, It's locked for good. Little triangle, push and pull, cut that off. Dubbing brush, again, like always, forward. Pull everything out and stand everything up. And then by doing that, when you rake it back, you're going to get this nice silhouette. All the fibers are going to lay back together. Since you kind of raked them forward and stood them all up, you get a really, really nice little silhouette. On the interior of the fly is going to have a nice little bit of sparkle, a nice little bit of a silhouette down in there. Next material we're going to go into is our legs. On this black and gold one, I use these Wapsi clear gold chrome silly legs. Very, very good. And I keep it super, super sparse. I am literally going to use one leg down each side of this fly. Just a hint of flash, just a hint of a lateral line. It is not a heavily rubbered up streamer. So I take one leg and I'm going to cut it in half. I am not a big fan of tying rubber legs in half and folding them over. I usually just cut them in half. I take one so I can precisely put it where I want, tie it right down the middle. I know you can't see this on this side. But we flip over, take our other side. We can put it exactly where we want without having it coming over the top of the shank. Pull it nice and straight and tie it off. Next material we're going to jump into is a mallard flank. This is wood duck gold, and again, we want a big one. You would want one that would be considered like a large feather. Not giant, but on this particular fly, you almost can't go too big. A good way to measure it, again, pull the fibers out, hold it against the shank, and they should extend pretty far back on that rabbit. This is a pretty good one here. We'll just go ahead and use this one. To prep it, we're going to pull off all of the fluff on the bottom. Right? Have something that looks like that. We're going to grab the tip. We're going to come down. Pull the fibers up, pull the fibers down. So you have a tip that looks like that, and then we're going to take that and we're just going to cut this basically all the way off just till we have a little bit of a triangle. And at this point, we're going to take that triangle, and like we talked about earlier, I don't know if these are going to be played in the same order, but the top of the feather is facing me. So when I stand this up, the fibers are already trained to go backwards. If you do it the other way, they're all going to want to go forward. It's pretty obvious, but make sure the top of the feather is towards you when you tie it in. When you stand it up, they go back. And at this point, I'm going to stand it up, wet my fingers, I'm going to fold them up and back. My tip was a little bit too short. I just pulled it out. No problem, didn't break it. I just didn't wrap it on there good enough. We'll add a little bit more tension. Should be good. Stand it up, pull them up and back. And once you get them up and back and you get them, wet, they're going to, be very, much better than they were. And then now at this point, you can make it even better. Wet your fingers and come from this way and pinch right at the stem. Pinch really, really hard, and that's going to preen them back even more to the point where they're all up and back and they're all going the same direction. Now at this point, it's super simple. We got rid of the fluff on the bottom, so we don't have to worry about counting wraps. The only thing you have to watch for is this far side leg. Just kind of hold it up when you make that first wrap so you don't grab that leg and pull it to the underside of the fly. But then after that, we're just going to work our way forward. Each turn, go in front of the next. And some fibers, you're not going to always get every single fiber on the feather correct. We can fix that, but we're going to go forward. I just hold that there kind of with my finger, and then just come up and just grab that stem. A couple of good hard turns to lock that. I got one feather that didn't want to play, and we'll just get rid of that one. And then at this point, before you go any further, just kind of work this feather out. Right? Make sure everything's where you want it. And that's about as good as you're going to get. Nice palmer. You want them to, even though we took all that time to make them lay super, super clean back, when the tips come out, I like that. It gives a little bit more dimension to the fly. These mallard flank with these fine bars on here are going to give a nice scale pattern just a breakup of the overall color. And the fact that when they kind of sweep out like that, I don't stress on that one bit. I actually enjoy when some of the fibers come out. And at this point, we're nearing the end. We've got pretty much everything on that fly except for our head. And this one's kind of a pain just to get all that rabbit in place. So what I do, just to make it easier so these don't get in my way, I just take a twist tie and I just come underneath. And this is going to hold this back. On flies where you're going to put a head on and trim it, this is very important because you could very easily trim your mallard, trim off your rubber legs. We are not going to do any trimming on the head of this fly, but just so I can see where I'm tying in, where I got to go, everything's nice and clean. Those are just, that twist tie is just going to keep everything out of the way. Next material, for the head, we're going to use rabbit again, but I'm just going to jump up to a Magnum strip. Again, on the Magnum, the hide is cut wider than a standard width, so for every inch or whatever, the more zonker you have, the more fur you're going to get. So I can get more fur with each clump that I take. And again, so to do this, on this particular fly on this size 2, since we're just kind of palmering a collar tight up there, I think 2 big clumps is going to be plenty. I may regret that, but we should be able to get it done with 2. And again, take with my left hand, I grab the fur, pull it out, grab the zonker with my right hand and pull it back. That's going to help me align all the tips. I grab as much as I physically can hold, come underneath, and cut it off of the hide. Now I've got this big bunch of rabbit fur. I'm going to transfer it to my other hand. You have something that looks like that. And this is fairly short fibered. Excuse me. On the, I'll drink real quick. On the small ones, you definitely want to measure this because from the hide to the tips is going to be way too long, especially on that little size 6. You're going to have to measure it and cut this. On this big one, basically as long as you can get it off of the hide is going to be the length that you're going to want. So all I do is flip it over and just square up the tips, or the butts, I mean. Put that on your table, just put it down nice and carefully, just drop it. And then we're going to do that one more time. Again, I should be able to do this nice and clean with just 2. We're not figure eighting through any dumbbells or anything. We're just palmering tight to that cone. So usually I can do this pretty cleanly with just 2 clumps. And again, this is Magnum, so I'm getting more fur than I would on a standard zonker. Again, just flip it around, square up the butts, put that on the table. We're going to make one more dubbing loop. Thread, pull it at you. We're going to go a little bit bigger on this one, just because I got all this rabbit to put in here. So 9 inches, 10 inches. Come back, throw your bobbin over it, lock it, work back right to where you tied off the mallard, and then bring your thread back to the cone. Again, you got your working thread, you got a loop. Now this one, again, I'm going to start with the loop coming right at me, so gravity is in my favor. I'm going to take the first bunch, just put it straight in, pick up the second bunch, put it straight in. Don't worry about measuring them, don't do anything. Put your dubbing tool in. This one's starting to come loose, push that forward. And at this point, we're just going to slowly separate this fur. Lost some of the fur on that first bunch, but that shouldn't be an issue. Just take that out. Just separate this. You want to get this nice and sparse. You can see I've got my fingers real close to the end here, even though the tool's in here. Keeping this as tight as possible so I don't lose too much fur. I lost a little bit right out of the gate, but we should be fine. And this one's a little unruly. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up and I'm going to clean this a little bit. Just anything that's not necessarily straight. And then at this point, I'm going to come from this side and I'm going to push this pretty close to the thread. So you have something like that. So I turn those 2 little clumps that I pulled off of that Magnum strip and I turned it into 5 inches. So you can, as long as you take your time and spread this out, You can turn a little into a lot in this loop. Again, it's not without, spreading it out and keeping it not bunched up. Once you have something that looks like that, we're going to spin this again. When I spin fur or hair, I spin it slower than I would with just dubbing. So I let it go prematurely. And then once it's tight, you can go to town on it. I'm going to come in, we're going to rake this out. I had a lot of fur in that one that wasn't too straight, so some clumps came out when I spun it, but that was my fault for not keeping them super straight in the loop. But again, aggressively rake that out, get all the fur to stand up, and you'll have this really, really nice, pure white rabbit fur dubbing loop that you just made. And now let's just simply palmer it tight to the cone. Each wrap, really pull that fur back, and we're going to stack as many wraps as we can get into this, right? That's it. You can count them, it doesn't really matter. It's just where you finish. Just keep going behind that cone. You'll feel them fall down into that cone until like you pull up on one, like this one is going to be our last one. It's super, super tight. Pull it up, grab your thread behind it. One more, that's just 2 turns. A little tight, but not so much. Pull up and down. You can let that go, fold this back, and you should have just enough room to tie this off super tight to that cone. Again, tying this off, you definitely want a little triangle on the scissors, put it right at the base of the dubbing loop, push and pull. And that's going to cut that off super, super clean. 1 or 2 more turns just to clean everything up. This is 140, so I'm going to twist this up real tight before I whip finish. Fold that back so I can see what I'm doing. Pull that tight so it cinches way down into that cone. Cut that off. At this point, we can take off our twist tie. There's your collar. Your mallard stands back up once you get that twist tie off. And just brush this out real quick. You don't really have to do any crazy brushing with this rabbit fur. It's all just going to go where it needs to go if you palmer it correctly. The last thing I'm going to do, I just stand this up and just cut these legs off, just about as long as the flash. Nothing crazy. I want them fairly long, but shorter than the rabbit, about as long as the flash. And that's the fly. That's the black and gold Sparring Partner in a number 2. Again, 3 sizes, 2, 4, 6. White and gold, I think I might have just said black and gold. White and gold, black and purple, and kind of a brown trout colored natural yellow. These are the 3 that'll be available. 3 different sizes. You can big to really, really small. That black and purple one in the size 6. Fantastic little lake leech. Fishing at low light, dirty water, through mud lines. Really, really good fly in that little tiny one. But yeah, that's the fly. Not too bad to tie. Fairly simple, straightforward. It'll catch you some fish. Take care.